Again, thank you for coming. So, Eastern Freedom Party, we're a socialist party here in the state of California. We're an independent third party. We have our own ballot access. That means you can vote for us if you don't during the primaries and even in general if we make it. And yeah, so part of being a socialist party is also just going beyond saying, hey, vote for us, but promoting and socialism and having these discussions, not just with our own party members, but also with fellow comrades. So today I'm going to give our comrades here a chance to introduce themselves before we get started on the questions. You can introduce yourself, the organizations you're involved with, and maybe keep it to and the kind of work that your organizations do, and keep it to a minute or two, brief, and then we'll get started into our questions. And then at the end of that session, we'll kind of open it up for Q&A. A little time for that, so we can just have some discourse here. Yeah. So thank you for coming for our post-election analysis discussion, and we'll give it over to our panelists.
Okay. So my name is Jazz. I'm a member of the Eastern Freedom Party, go by Shile, and I'll just keep it short because I want to hear more from people here. What your perspectives are, and I guess your analysis of the current situation that we're in. But relatively. For myself, I'm a member of the Eastern Freedom Party, and right now our party is just trying to just root ourselves within the moment. We're trying to be practical and pragmatic, give principle to our socialist values and anti-imperialist commitments. But we understand the need to, it kind of feels redundant to say this, but run in elections, do the electoral approach, but understanding that. It's just merely a tool and a complementary approach to what is more important, which is building up the social movements, the revolutionary forces that exist here now, through the social movements, through the base building parks, the union, the variant anti-imperialist collectives like the PYM. There's a lot of activity going on, and we're just trying to become a political instrument for the movements. We're not here to dictate or control, be a vanguard, but to invite cooperation within the party through the form of running candidates from the social movements in these local elections in order to propagandize masses, in order to put out there what are the struggles that the social movements are advocating, as well as building up a line together, understanding that the Peace and Freedom Party is just hopefully can be a hub where different social movement and socialist political actors can come together and cooperate, struggle together, debate, and really just build out a strategy for our current situation. We don't have answers, but together we can have answers. We can come to that conclusion through struggle, through cooperation. So yeah, we'll speak more on what the Peace and Freedom Party is going to do as far as running the local elections, building up grassroots initiatives, particularly around reacting to the fascist policies that are being put forth, developing, regenerating a rapid response network to depend on documented workers and people. And yeah, there's a lot of things that we're trying to do, ambitious and practical, but yeah, in general, our approach is just to build a coalition and cooperate with the movements. We want to engage in struggle together. We're not interested in doing it alone.
Follow that, thanks. Well, I'm the Harry Tubman Center for Social Justice, and I'm also a member of the Socialist Unity Party. And we've got a long history here in the U.S. in the movement. I don't know, folks, I think California might be the place where there's the most, the highest minimum wage. That's one of the states. And there's a reason for that, not because they're nice people. It's because they got scared. They got scared. One of our initiatives was to have a $15 minimum wage in 2013. And it scared the hell out of the mayor, and then he decided to do something else because ours was going to make it happen right then. And he said, "Oh no, we gotta do it a little easier. Wait until 222 or whatever." But anyway, the push and building the movement that needed to be done, because we've only been successful when we were able not to do it on our own. There's not enough of us to do that. To be honest, we don't have the money from Ford and things. But if we can facilitate the cooperation with other organizations to do an action united, that's what we all, and which is why I'm so happy to be, I've been running on the ballot, Peace and Freedom Party for 5 elections for a while. And the great part of the Peace and Freedom Party is other organizations, tendencies, they can work together and come to a common candidates or whatever they want to call it, but work together. But right now we're seeing that opportunity much more increased by the Peace and Freedom Party leadership forces that I see in Southern California here. The forces that are really facilitating greater unity in our movement. And that's why I'm so honored to be part of that. Learn from these young folks here, 64, and I got a lot to learn, more to learn, and I'm glad to learn from this and to help with our organization and other things. And we're basically, we're for, like Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. And those means usually mean solidarity is our greatest tool. International solidarity with the LGBTQ movement, with the youth women's movement, black liberation, brown liberation movement. We got to build that solidarity and unity, and by any means, sometimes. So that solidarity is one of the main things that we're going to use, whether it's the electoral thing or getting out in the streets and shutting things down. Use whatever tactic works, whatever builds the consciousness of the working class to see a common enemy. That's what we're about. And I guess that's it.
Mine's just going to be a simple intro. My name's Danny, he, him pronouns, and I was a late replacement for one of my friends that we're both in this party called Morena in Los Angeles. It's the ruling party of Mexico at the moment, and they're implementing strong people-centered policies over there. So we want to see how we can take some of that, those lessons of achieving power and implementing these ideas that are, leftist types of socialist ideas that they have, and try to see how we can work together to see how we can grow that movement and be inspired by it. Take some lessons. So yeah, I've been in third-party politics for about 20 years. I voted for Ralph Nader when I turned 18 in 2001, and ever since, I always thought we need a third-party alternative, and just been in random, different socialist organizations. I've worked with Food Not Bombs for about 8 years, and just learned what real democracy feels and looks like, and how I feel that we have to also reform our democratic system to make it more democratic in order to be able to get the power in the party to really be able to make a change in that electoral system. So yeah, I'm just here to, I just recently joined the PFP, and I'm really inspired by it. It feels people are more active and socially conscious more than other third-party alternatives. So yeah, I'm here to answer questions about maybe what it's like of Mexico or something in my past. So thank you.
Great. I forgot to say, he, him. I'm learning on the trans struggle and things like that. Us young folks, us old folks, can still learn. I forgot my memory. He, him.
Yeah, you didn't say your name.
John Parker.
He got straight to business, though. I love it.
Just a round of applause for Jen.
All right. Speaking of getting to business, let's get to these questions. Why we're all here, right? So the results of this election, we're going to be disastrous for the left either way, right? So we already had, we have a genocider in office. So, in these situations, we're pretty much put into like a lose-lose, right? And we think that we have a world to win. And in that, we've got to do it together, right? And so part of that is like starting that conversation here. So
getting on that topic of analyzing the election. So we'll start, I guess, in this order, and then maybe just down the line, right? So what do the 2024 election results reveal about the political landscape in the U.S., particularly regarding the strength of the MAGA movement and the failure of the Democrats to be able to counter it?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said, but I guess in my point of view, I think we understand that we work in a moment where there's a lot of political forces like organizing themselves and like ambitious like I guess minority political groups who like want to like expand and project like their political visions of how things should be done, how the world should be run, at least like in this context. And I mean, I'll just be honest, I think like the fascists, like they've out-organized us, and that's kind of just like an affirmation that I see constantly, which is like they behave similar to us, they have different commitments and projects, but they have their social movements, their grassroots bases, and they have their cadres, and they know how to mobilize themselves really well and to propagandize their ideas to supporters or just like people not within their like micro publics and persuade them, and kind of mobilize sentiments around. I mean, what we recognize is just like reactionary, like anxieties about real issues that are the working class and just like the society that we live in experience, which is like recession, inflation, and just like perpetual, I guess, stagnation, in an economic, and to them in a social sense, like that the civil society is leading to a world that they're not comfortable with, the fascists at least. And not necessarily everyone who's supporting them is like full-blown fascists, but regardless, like this is what they see as an alternative, to like the liberal establishment, which is what the neoliberals for a long time have had hegemony and control, but now, just with the genocide in Gaza, like, that's completely shattered. Like, their prestige and the way that they want to run the world is still contested, and they're still in control relatively in the international scheme, but locally, the fascists have one ground, they've one political territory, and they see it, and they're just going to keep running with that momentum because people want an alternative, working class, middle class, even the bourgeois elements, they recognize that the current way things are running, especially just to articulate the neoliberal project, is unsustainable. The third world is starting to organize itself. You have BRICS coming into the play. You have even Mexico, starting to advocate for its own economic independence. And so they recognize that they're in a messed up situation. The neoliberals, and right now they're trying to figure out what to do, but the fascists, they're coming in with their own solutions. And so I think, it just shows, and I'm more interested to hear from other people what they see as the critiques and kind of the contradictions or the issues that have kind of led to the situation. But I would just say that, I think it just affirms that, the fascists do have a very well-maintained social movement and political actors in their party that know how to advocates and push out their vision. It's very persuasive and it's seductive. So,
Okay. We're supposed to do 3 minutes or something like that?
Yeah.
I have time to track it going on. I'm not Fidel.
Look at that self-discipline. Wow.
Shut the hell up. Anyway, though, one thing important to understand: the electoral system in this, the elections in this system are done by since the 1880s, 1890s. They're around the 90% of the time. It's the money of the financial and industrial monopolies that put the money in there, and whoever got the most money from those groupings, those are the ones that get elected 90% of the time. And when the votes don't go the way they want it to go, there's an electoral college. There's no real democracy. It's electoral college, doesn't matter how you vote. They didn't get voted on, it's electoral college votes in whatever way they decide. And they've done it. They've done it with Reconstruction after slavery. And they changed the vote around to allow the end of Reconstruction and allow the Klan to go in there. So it's really, it's up to the ruling class to decide which one they're going to vote for, which one's that kind of thing. So, and the other thing too is that, you know, they always play the game, that Democrat, Republican, that's all you got. That's the only choices the ruling class tries to give you. And they play against each other, and they play with each other, like the good cop, bad cop. So the Trump and the fascist talking folks will sound really bad. Then the Democrats say, oh, we're the good guys, but then they're the ones that they sometimes, like Democrats, there's more wars on Democrats in the administration. Look, we have Obama who went to destroy, totally destroyed Libya, put AFRICOM in Africa, has done horrible things. It's funny how they use white supremacy, they use black faces, or women's faces to be really against women's issues, to really like, we'll say, okay, Trump is bad, what's he gonna do? Well, look what Biden and Harris did already, oh my God, a Holocaust, a horrid Holocaust. Internationally, people aren't so afraid of Trump. And when Trump tried to tell people in Africa and the continent that don't go for it, stay with the IMF and World Bank, don't go with the Chinese Belt and Road projects that are allowing you to get away from the IMF. No, get away from the. Well, what happened in the fiber optics, telephone things, all that 4G, all of that came from Huawei, I'm pronouncing it wrong, Huawei, the Chinese thing. That's what created the communication, digital communication, railway communication, all electric railways, all these infrastructure that was allowed to not only be built, but belong to the countries in Africa. They keep them. They develop it. You know, all that kind of stuff is very important. It's interesting. You know, there's contradictions in what China's doing, but you know, they're on the leash of the Communist Party, and the main hard industry is still owned. State is owned by the Chinese government. It's still so the capitalists and the billionaires. Oh my God, it's terrible. But they're on the leash. They're on the leash. So they're on the leash of these forces. So anyway, they're helping to get it. So Trump said, don't do it. They did it anyway. They did 70% of them think that Trump's done a lot of things, and Nixon's a good example. Nixon said Nixon was really horrible, Vietnam War, things like that. Because you know, 8 Section 8 housing, 8 Section 8.
Section 8.
Section 8. Section 8 housing, other very progressive things happened under the Nixon administration. Not because he wanted to, but the movement was so powerful. They were so mad at him, it came up, and that's what really makes it thing. So Trump, we don't have to be afraid of him. Whatever he's going to do, he was around before last time, but if he's going to create the movement and make folks feel more important about doing things right now, we're seeing it right now, he won't be able to do anything because, you know, the movement is what's going to really make the change. I guess that's okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, I think the biggest factor is the disinformation that's been out, and the Democrats moving more to the right and backing that disinformation instead of countering it. For example, immigration, where they stepped into defending, arresting criminals and illegal criminals or whatever, when the fact is that illegal, undocumented people commit crime at half the rate as U.S. citizens, so that's how they should be fighting it. But no, they're leaning to the right, and we can blame different factors for that. But I think John has the correct point, is that I think ever since Citizens United, the Democratic Party has fully sold out to corporations and the corporate elite and the billionaires. So Now they don't even offer an alternative, they just offer a scare tactic of the Republicans. So we need to, really fight that disinformation with good information, with facts, not with, trying to find a different alternative to what the Republicans say or what the Democrats are doing at the moment. So yeah, I think that was a big factor in the elections. I know people might say, the fascists are organizing better, as you say, and I agree. But I think if you actually provide a progressive or socialist alternative, people gravitate to that. It's just that there hasn't been one offered to us. So that's why we feel like there's more reactionaries when, there is, but also the progressives or the socialists are just waiting for that alternative to, as we did with Bernie, to jump on that different alternative. If you there's polls that have showed that people, the majority of Americans back a stronger border, but they even back more amnesty. So that's to show that Americans are still looking for that progressive alternative.
Speaking of alternatives, that leads us right into our next question. So, good segue there. So, speaking of which, so how can then a socialist party distinguish itself as a credible and viable alternative to the two-party system, right? And what kind of tactics, would we need to get there in order to, get to that point? So, you can start over here.
Yeah, so I think, just to echo what all the comments just stated, I think, at least that's what I was trying to say, which is kind of what's the situation at hand, but you said beautifully, there needs to be an alternative, there's just no alternative, so there's no material, there's no way that people can consider a different way of resolving the issues and the anxieties that people have right now. But relatively, I think this is why we're all here, which is we're exploring with how to build up a permanent and sustainable movement that can reach to the masses. But particularly who we're talking about is we're talking about constituents, we're talking about people who are working class, who are oppressed, and who want to, I think we understand, live their lives well and to thrive within the current historical situation or society that they live in right now. And it's really just I think about what it means to build up a movement, which is speaking to the people about the issues that confront their lives, which we understand is inflation, just the genocide in Gaza, that's polarizing people. And these are kind of there are issues that polarize people, and we need to kind of articulate visions and platforms that speak to people about what are these issues and how do we resolve them. But I think part of that is about going about that way is one, building up what we're saying coalition with the social movements, but more importantly, in order for us to meet the people where they're at and kind of understand what their demands are and what their issues and what issues they want to advance, we need to actually be in communication and dialogue with the constituents or we're saying the basis of people that we want support from. And it's not just about pushing out our own visions and assuming people want a progressive or radical vision and that's it. It's people want a vision that's actually concrete, that actually resolves the issues that they're dealing with right now, And I do believe that, people are not, most of societies, civil society is not necessarily reactionary, but there is a clear understanding that what most socialist and progressive candidates have been offering has just been abstract. It's kind of in the air, and it's progressive and it's radical in theory, but we want to be in the ground. We want to speak to what is at the root of the issue, and I guess relatively what are those major issues, and we can use the fascist movement as a soundboard of what are the things that people want to resolve, and we can be honest. Trump spoke to people's anxieties about the economy and about where things are going, and the liberals didn't. The liberals kind of just spoke about all these vibes, obscure obscure ideas. But the point is and also Trump communicated to like at least like, I mean, again, like you have Jill Stein, which, she had a lot of support from like the Muslim communities like in the U.S., but then you also have like Trump saying, I'm gonna end the genocide in Gaza and blah, blah, blah. And again, like when you have like, as we're saying, like only two options, people are going to just choose the option that actually speaks to resolving issues that they want to resolve, and then liberals didn't speak to any of those things. So I think, and again, like, I can put out here saying like, oh, these are the different issues and strategies that we need to like do to like build up like, this like radical or just even just progressive populist movement. So we're speaking about populism. We're speaking about actually meeting people's popular demands and needs. And yeah, and again, like, I don't want to like prescribe like solutions or tactics necessarily right now. I want to have a dialogue for that, but relatively, I think the situation demands for socialists to actually speak to the people's needs but also to stay principled to like our values, which is we're socialists, we're radicals, and we're interested not in compromising on specific principles as far as like, being rooted in working class politics, understanding that the goal is to create an anti-imperialist global society, to advocate for anti-imperialist movements and to cultivate and to demand and cultivate cooperation among different peoples and nations. And then, of course, just resolving the issues that we have here with people-centered policies. And getting to that point, that's a process that we can talk about more, but I do see that as the way to go, to build an alternative. Yeah.
All right, spend my time. Well, great, I really appreciate that the getting to what people really need, concrete, like we're talking about, like the Black Panther Party and the breakfast program. You get to what people need, knowing that there's no way you can resolve the problem without the wealth from the government, but you can build consciousness and at the same time build leads, they say survival to revolution type of thing, very important. And this election, I think, has made it most clear about the fact that there is no alternative with the Democratic and Republican Party. That's why Kamala Harris had so many people they voted for her, but they weren't happy about voting for her. Black folks aren't really happy about voting for the top cop, the Attorney General, who supports the cops and the genocide and stuff like that. They weren't supporting the genocide in Michigan. So like 4 or 5 states flipped from Republican, the Democrat to Republican because they hated her so much. In Michigan, one of the most electoral votes, I guess it was, one of the places that most electoral was, the Arab community was so pissed off with her that some of them voted for Trump, not because they liked Trump, but they hated her so much. So it's like the Democrats try to out-Trump. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just makes, but it's going to push folks towards. That's why it was so important for the Peace and Freedom Party and other candidates from Claudia and West and Stein. It was so important for them to be there, to have an alternative to build the movement. So it's that, and the other thing of when we show that the ruling class and the money and the monopolies are the ones that are creating the problem, and we point a finger to the less than 1% who own the land, the factories and the machines and all of that stuff. And there's no democracy because once they own that production, that's the big contradiction. Our wealth goes to create the value of the society, but we don't get a chance to decide how that wealth is going to be used. Only the less than 1% who own production have that thing. So we have to always try to say, the only way this is going to be resolved is to take over the means of production and build a movement that's going to do that, and build a consciousness that's going to want to do that. And seeing all the problems that we're talking about, people want to have more food for their children. They want to have a place to live. They want to have a place to live. They want to have but those things can't be resolved as long as the ruling class has that ability. But when people understand that the wealth that from their hands, from labor, it goes to them and we don't get it back. And all the austerity programs that society have problems of homelessness, poverty, starvation, healthcare, lack of healthcare, all the deaths, unnecessary deaths from whether it's COVID or heart attack or whatever, or stroke, or it's not necessary, but it's because they don't have the money. We aren't able to decide how our money gets spent. So the Amazon Bill, what's his name? Bill, the former Amazon person, Bezos, he's got this thing. The droid ride up to space really wasn't to outer upper atmosphere, really, but oh yeah, we got $6 billion, let's do that. He said, thank you, Amazon, for workers, for making this happen. Well, if the workers could make a decision, they wouldn't be doing that thing, because when he did that, that's when there was an infant, infant milk. There was a factory shortage of infant milk that was able to, and this is the richest country in the world, and that was happening. I think they would have probably spent the money for that rather than a droid ride up into there with William Shatner. So, I used to like William Shatner, but now, and by the way, what's her name? Uhuru went there way before William Shatner. Who was Uhuru's name from Star Trek?
Yeah,
the black
starts with
woman.
an N.
Well, whatever it is, she went up there way before William Shatner. Anyway, yeah, I'm getting off the topic. So.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like, how can the third party, or how can we build this third party to distinguish itself, as they say, even from the Green Party or something, which has been a third party for a long time and hasn't really grown much. So, how would we grow and distinguish ourselves? And this is the part where maybe that lessons that we're learning from Mexico can maybe apply. Is one is their internal politic. They're driven by principles, so it's very collective and kind of thoughts of if you're gonna join the party, it's gonna be to be serving people and stuff like this. So people come in with the right mentality. There's certain rules to how you conduct yourself. No taking gifts even while you're in the party, stuff like that. So those things I think are a principle how we built the party, because it seems like the Green Party, as some critics have said, only come around when election year comes around. So we don't want that type of party, as John says, and as Morena, the party in Mexico, says. They're a party movement, so it's a movement and a party. It's not one or the other, and we're not here to create cliques and stuff like that. We're trying to invite as big of an umbrella as we can, while preserving our principles of socialism and being people centered. So I think it's having that type of inviting structure while still sticking to principles. Plus, unfortunately, I think it's also having charismatic leaders in our movement. It's not something I prefer, but it's just something that works, and that really, people just really gravitate towards good, charismatic leaders, especially when they're ethical and stuff like that. So, I think it's a combination of both.
That's again for the next question. Speaking of, you mentioned Green Party. It's interesting too, because we sort of expected, I think a lot of people on the left probably expected a pretty decent turnout. Maybe not the 5%, right? Because that felt pretty ambitious, but something a little approaching that, and then in the end it ended up being like half, like 1%, which was like, I imagine that had to even be disappointing for what they were expecting, based on the energy, right? So sometimes perception of growth is perception. So I think you kind of tied it's like, what's the work, right, that is happening consistently that makes it real. And yeah, I agree with that too. So in terms of, let's see, here our next question, ready, is moving on then in terms of like, which is, you know, part of what part of the panel is like fighting MAGA, right? Fighting fascism. Kind of the setup to this question is that we are, you know, despite the fact that we know that we have a lot of people that are dissatisfied with political duopoly, a lot of people that feel like the Democrats, a lot of the working class, like, are not representing them. And so those people really are left out of the political environment. Despite that, there is a growing right-wing, far-right movement in this country. You can say fascist in a lot of senses, and we have seen a national referendum, not, you know, in every area, but even in California, we've seen districts that normally would have been liberal, like, or the turnout ended up going a lot more red, right? And so when we're seeing the rhetoric of a lot of these parties, right, a lot of the on the far right side, it sounds a lot more like fascism, right? And then it's like, how serious are they about these threats? I guess we'll end up finding out. And so in terms of combating that, right, what are the practical steps that socialists can take to confront and weaken the rising tide of fascism or the far right movement in America, both politically and in our like local communities?
That's a big question. Yeah. So I think the law like kind of approaches to confronting like this kind of like fascist duel, which is like, you know, rising up right now. So I think there's currently a lot of initiatives and campaigns that are trying to, you know, push back, prepare for the onslaught of like fascist policies and fascist like mobilization. But I think relatively what we have to accept is that we need to build up our strength to even like, you know, deal with the brunt of like these mobilizations and these like policies that are going to come into play. And yeah, like, you know, we live in, you know, a relatively, you know, I guess distant region, you know, within, you know, the United States, where liberals have hegemony here. But again, it's like they're not going to protect, you know, the working class, and especially undocumented and trans and queer, just, you know, marginalized communities in society. Like, they're not going to do that substantially, and we need to, I think, accept that this is a responsibility for socialist radicals to take up that, you know, to protect our people, to protect those most vulnerable to these policies, and also accept that, yeah, that we need to be political about it, that this is about accepting that there is massive polarization right now in this whole like country, and we need to like kind of capitalize on it in the sense that there are already divisions being made, and right now, you know, the liberal supporting base is recognizing that their political actors are weak and that they're not going to give like concrete programmatic solutions. So like we should like we need to jump into that fissure and really put out there like programmatic solutions, or at least initiatives. And so right now, those initiatives for the PFP is that we're exploring, I mentioned earlier, with this grassroots initiative to develop a rapid response network to protect, you know, undocumented workers from getting deported, you know. And so that was already in existence the last time Trump came into office, and our inspiration is coming from like, the K-Town Rapid Response Network that existed. I know many of you might be familiar with them. And yeah, we're just trying to revitalize that project, you know, because it's necessary, and it was necessary then, it's necessary now. But as a party, you know, we see it as not only a form of just protecting people from getting deported, you know, for the sake of, you know, protecting those most vulnerable because it makes us feel good. No, it's not about that. It's just about actually we want to build power. You know, we want to build power with those most marginalized because they're vulnerable. But again, you understand that the power lies with the people when they're organized, when they have they go through experiences that strengthen them, that sharpen them through struggle. And so we see this as an avenue to developing that. It's a base building initiative, essentially, where touching base with undocumented people who are threatened and protecting them. But it's not just about, you know, being a service provider, you know, like, oh, you know, we're a de facto alternative to, like, you know, the police and social justice warriors. No, it's about actually connecting with them and staying in staying in that campaign with them, which is about, you know, understanding like, well, other people are vulnerable too. Like you can also participate in those initiatives, protecting your neighbors or other people who are going to be deported. And it's also about recognizing and exploring what ideas of self-organization, which I think that's what we have to do as socialists, is like understand that we have visions and we have ideas, and that all the work and not what I guess what grassroots organizing is really about is just trying to develop these ideas in concrete ways that are attractive and resonating with people. And so part of that is just like, hopefully, you know, we can explore what ideas, if this campaign is successful, you know, ideas of like undocumented workers organizing themselves within, you know, de facto unions, you know, or worker associations, and that recognizing that they can demand for more, that they need to protect themselves against more onslaughts, you know, which for us, our experiences like with Los Angeles Tenants Union, where those are undocumented people, those are senoras who like, they have power, and they've gone through enough struggles where they recognize how to organize themselves and how to like advance the movement in a sustainable way, and they understand their interests, they understand their goals, but the point is that that needs to grow. You know, the successes that have occurred in social movements need to be shared with those who are not in touch with those, I guess, subcultures or critical consciousnesses, you know. And so that's part of PFP, is just kind of like, you know, kind of roping in ourselves with LOC2, with I mean, there's going to be plenty of like, I guess, organizations that are going to be protecting undocumented workers, of course, and like kind of roping ourselves all together to like, one, like share insights and knowledge together, but also do open forums or, and again, maybe it's coming into like too much of the concrete steps, but like relatively like, I know I'm narrating on the undocumented kind of like marginalized like issues or campaigns around them, but it's like, this is, I think, in essence, like we want to explore in this current moment, like ideas of people coming together to build community organizations, and I think part of that is just like kind of pulling together the knowledge that already exists now, which is the social movements. And that's the hope of PFP, is that we can build solidarity with the social movements and be like, hey, we have these campaigns that we want to develop and that are necessary for the people. Like, we need to share this knowledge and give confidence and struggle with these people, be in solidarity with them. And yeah, I think those concrete steps are relatively just having, I think, inviting mass mobilization, just having like open forums where, you know, people who are threatened by these policies coming to like events that we host in court, you know, with other social movements like LOC2, you know, Tenants Union, just other collectives, and for people to see that there is an alternative to, instead of like fearing for their lives or accepting the consequences, you know, there is an alternative, and it's about building power, organizing themselves, and accepting that they do have allies that exist now, you know, and that's kind of what, you know, we've been echoing this whole time, is like, our presence needs to be known, and it's not just to, you know, get more constituents and votes. As part of where we want to build power, we want to have the support of the people, but again, it's about actually helping them through their struggles, you know, actually helping them develop their own power, you know, and we are allies. We're not allies, we're comrades in struggle, and we need to make our presence known, and that's by actually engaging around these very polarizing initiatives, you know, and coming to the people, you know, with these invitations, but also with these, I guess, programmatic initiatives, which is the rapid response, the tenant organizing, and there's a lot of things that we can explore. But I think it's about, you know, being committed to, yeah, doing the work on the ground, you know, and that's something that unfortunately a lot of comrades have kind of accepted that they don't want to do that, but we want to do that. You know, I think same goes through here. So.
Yeah. Well, shoot, man, hold on a second. All right, somebody should time for you. Yeah, you know, how do we deal with fascism and things like that? You know, the Hitler, Trump, all these, what's his name, Mussolini, all those, they use the same tactic all the time, is to appeal to the working class and make them think that oh, we're talking about your issues. We want more money for you. We need better wages. You guys need this. You need that. And they make people think that they're really, and they target somebody else. And they use division. Oh, those immigrants over there. Oh, those black people over there, they're doing that and they're taking your jobs. And people don't, they don't know better, and they want help right now to feed their children. Hey, that looks pretty good. Well, maybe I'll go for that. And that's how they win people over. It's a big lie, because once they get you, Mussolini, all those folks, then they just tore them apart. Fascism, union leaders, they kill them, they assassinate them. They're not in their interest, but they make them think they are. And Trump's talk is the same kind of thing. So that's why our consciousness and building consciousness about real working class struggle, the importance for solidarity and unity, because that's what's going to make us strong. When they try to divide us, the ruling class loves those theories that divide us. Like, they say, okay, well, you can't trust the white workers. Forget about them. It's just black and brown folks. We can't trust them. We can't. No. Okay, that's the way it's going to make us lose if we're not united. That doesn't mean you don't take the leadership from the people who are most oppressed, because they have the most accused, and first usually the ones that seek that oppression, so they have a way of dealing with it. They know how to, because they've been dealing with it for a long time, so they should be a lot of time in the leadership. But it doesn't mean you get divided from that. Fred Hampton was a good example. Fred Hampton was a good example of how to take the struggles of the Black Panther Party and make them also the struggles and the help of liberation to the brown community, to even the white, what do they call them, the white patriots or something like that. They came there, Black Panthers came there when they had a big Confederate flag on the thing, and he talked to them about, it's the same cop, because they were poor working class white folks there, and they were getting beaten up by the cops still, and Fred Hampton said, look, they're beating you, they're beating us up, and they won them over. They won a rainbow coalition that was really powerful. That's what the ruling class hates. So that's one of the things to fight fascism. I just want my little dang thing. I tell you, technology doesn't work. That, and don't be afraid. That unity is important, but it's not. We want to be in solidarity with the LGBTQ community, black struggle, all these things. It's the right thing to do, but that's not the main reason why you're doing it. You're doing it because you want to win the class struggle, and you need to fight. You need the tools, the things to do that, and that unity is important. And also to understand that we're not defense. We can defend ourselves. Let people once we figure out that we're more numbers than they are, many more numbers than they are, and we have the power of our labor power that can bring things down to a halt. You just take away that labor power, they can't make their profits. We have and when they try to scare us with their bullets and clubs and things like that, we have more people. And I'm not a pacifist. and you see a cop hit somebody in the streets, killing a child or choking a child down there. You got, actually in my block club, Harvard Boulevard Block Club, they tried to arrest somebody for some bullshit, black youth and stuff, and we called up the club, and we surrounded those fuckers. And sorry, fuckers. But anyway, there's ways to do it. Solidarity and not being afraid to fight back when you have to. You got to be organized. You got to do it in a tactical way. But there's things that have to be done. When the fascists they align themselves, there's a what's his name? I forgot his name. But there's a weekly rally in Koreatown. I forgot the brother's name. Yeah, so they have this rally every 6 or 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock I think it is, on Fridays, and they're a little afraid now because there's reaction from folks, so they're afraid about whether they can do it. Well, we got to organize people to go there and keep them safe. There's more of us than are of them. There's an example I'll end with in 2013, I think is when I guess it was Obama maybe, and we're targeting Iran to provoke a war against Iran. And we had a rally in Pershing Square, and folks who supported the Shah came out, they tried to take over the stage. They didn't take over the stage. And there's a brother I really like there's a memorial for him soon, Rudy Pisani. He was 94 when he died. He was about 94 recently. And he's somebody who, he's a fighter. And he was out there fighting with those folks. Oh, it's funny. But anyway, they weren't successful in what they were doing. And we're not pacifists. And we'll learn how to fight better too and all those things by building consciousness. And sometimes you got to do the other thing too. You just make sure you're tactical, you have enough forces, you're not isolated, and we don't have to be afraid of those fuckers.
Well, I think both of you said it all. I mean, you know, I agree. Like that's the way we do it. Before the Nazis were a political party, they were a street gang, so they were intimidating people on the streets. And I think once you give them the streets, the fear really spreads. So you can't give them the streets, and so you have to confront them at times. And yeah, I think we should take serious, you know, our health and maybe some self-defense training, because those times will come, and we have to be ready for that kind of stuff. You know, and wherever possible, you know, try to maybe in the local level, you know, try to organize. As my other comrade said, we have to mutual aid and self-defense and all this, and be able to call each other for emergencies, and us be able to show up. So, you know, not just in rapid response among friends and comrades. So I think the more we do that, the more we fight disinformation, and get ourselves ready in a community sense, then the better we will be. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, great answers. So for the sake of time here, we're just going to skip to the last question, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A so we can hear more from everybody here. So, you know, kind of to, in a sense, to wrap it up, and to take, like, so where do we go from here, right? I think the question in a lot of people's minds is, how do we build, like, as socialists, right? How do we build political power? So we can, right, going forward, in concretely, not just like, oh, in the distant future we'll have power. Like, no, in like, I'm not saying we're going to win right away in 2026, 2028, but in these time frames, you know, yeah, like, what do we do in order to really put ourselves in a better place in further elections and in the movement as a whole?
Yeah, so this is getting to like exciting stuff where it's like what we, yeah, like how do we actually, what do we do together, you know? And I think, at least I'll say from experience, like I've been part of, I think, yeah, like just many like coalition attempts, you know, where different organizations coalesce together and be like, oh yeah, it's a great idea, like let's work together, we have common goals, we have common interests, let's just like have a meeting and talk it out. But, you know, and oftentimes like, we do shared marches, shared demonstrations, and, you know, there's communication among ourselves, but then it dies out. Because people get busy, you know, and struggle, and also, we also unfortunately kind of are limited because we're not like cohesive together. We don't have like a cohesive strategy or like shared project. So we just kind of deviate into our particular projects and our single issues. You know? And that's fair, you know, I mean, it's overwhelming for a lot of issues and struggles that we need to engage in. But I think what we can do, and hopefully this is kind of like a direction moving forward, which is like, and again, you know, I really do, like, I feel really humbled, you know, that comrades, you know, say that, like, you know, they respect the PFP and, like, what we're trying to do, and you know, I'm very honored to just, you know, be on this panel with, you know, John Parker, because, you know, yeah, like, you know, he's awesome, and I just think, yeah, like, at least, you know, I'm only speaking as a member of the party, that we're interested in, yeah, building a coalition, but, you know, and yes, we talk about this in different, you know, formations, like, oh yeah, allying ourselves is good, but what is the actual direction that we can share together, you know? And I think for the Peace and Freedom Party, our, I guess, invitation is always, well, building up, we have to build up the grassroots movement, and what that means is giving it a cohesive project, a cohesive character to it. And it's not just about like prescribing like a vanguard, to like prescribe orders. It's about building a mass party, building a coalition party that is interested in expressing the individual struggles of particular organizations and social movements and unions, but also understanding that there's a need to engage in, to intervene into the state, to win state power, not as, to reform the state or any means necessary, but understanding that this is how, that we need to meet the people where they're at, we need to move their hearts and minds, and that's by taking that platform, taking that political territory up that the fascists have exploited for so long now, and understanding that the elections, as Lenin would say, they're just a tool, but the elections, that's what, I don't want to like kind of be, kind of focus on that, but as the comrade, people forget that like Comrade Lenin was a campaign manager, like they ran elections, the Bolsheviks did that up until they were ready to engage in, I guess, the violence, and take over the revolutionary situation. But the point is that you see time and time again, for myself, like that this strategy of winning the masses by developing a mass party that is like one, inviting to different tendencies and organizations to be in a coalition together, to one, advance their mutual interests, which is, pushing candidates and policies in the state that, are attractive to the people, but also understanding that we may not win the initial interventions, but that puts our name out there, that puts our presence out there. But more importantly, we should try to win. That's the main thing that matters, is that we can't just use the attempt into the election run as a propaganda tool in itself. It's like, no, you gotta actually have power. That's actually what matters to people. It's not just like attempting, it's like trying. We try it all the time, and nothing fucking happens. The point is actually win. And so that's what we see as necessary, which is, that's why for ourselves, we're not compromising our values, but we are pragmatic. We understand that. We need to communicate to the people's needs and actually have concrete platforms or positions that speak to those needs. And part of that is making alliances with the different social movements, putting aside the petty grievances, the different tensions that arise in movement, and understanding that we don't have power, but together we pull our forces together, our knowledge, and speak to the people as a cohesive mass party. Because again, Peace and Freedom Party, like we're not a vanguard, we're not a cadre. We're just trying to build an instrument that is used by the social movements and the people themselves. We want to run successful elections, and that's by actually, successfully canvassing, and as you said, having persuasive leaders. Like we have charismatic leaders in the movement now. John Parker, this comrade here, we have leaders that like can win the hearts of the people. And again, like it's just a matter of just like sharing the same platform, like we're sharing the same party. And again, what limits oftentimes, I guess, party formations or even running elections has been this tendency for the party to try to prescribe hierarchy or legacies or tendencies over their like partners. Instead of treating our coalition members as partners, they come in and treat them as cronies. It's like, oh, we set the tone, we have the direction, we follow that. We don't know what the fucking direction is. We have to develop that through struggle. We have assumptions, we have considerations, but we got to do that together. And so I think for the PFP, we want to build a mass coalition party that is inviting and partnering up with different social movements and unions and other political parties who are interested in running successful elections, because we see that as strengthening the grassroots. Because the thing is that there's so many beautiful works being done, but the numbers don't grow. The organizations don't grow, the membership stagnates. But so that's about getting the word out there. Participating in people's local struggles around, building up working class power, protecting undocumented people, and also putting our own campaigns out there. Like, hey, the different social movements, they have beautiful work that's going on, but people just in the city, the big ass city, they don't know about it. So we gotta put that out there on those shared platforms, electoral platforms, and we see it as a way of strengthening the grassroots too. Not all comrades will want to be part of the state intervention. And that's fine. If people want to stay on the ground, the grassroots, and kind of build power from there, that's what we need. We want comrades to be doing what they're doing already, just together, with a shared intention in mind that winning elections is important, and strengthening and growing the grassroots social movements is important, to also advance your own campaigns. And in Latu, we saw them too. In Latu, they have beautiful campaigns going on. They just need more people. They need more numbers. They need more organizers. They need more supporters, and more importantly, they need more tenant associations. And that's only happens by them having a bigger presence and actually being attractive to people who are not organized already. And that's through the elections, We see it as necessary. So, and I'm speaking as a member, and that's our shared goal. And I can definitely say for myself, I wouldn't be interested in the PFP if we were interested in approaching it the same way like usual. Just like, oh, we're just gonna lead the direction and people will follow. And it's like, no, we need to work together. And I want to build a struggle. I want to build a cohesive direction through struggle and through cooperation. And winning the people's hearts and minds. And again, this is the question that we're considering right now because we don't have power. But when we are in this position of leverage, of power, that's where we can start considering these more, theoretical or advanced ideas of how do you start raising up the consciousness more of people. Raising up the consciousness through elections is a pathway. But how do we go beyond that? How do we develop socialism within the grassroots and start tearing up the state, start to tear up the bourgeois state within it by being part of its projects. But that gets into something else where we don't even know unless we win. We won't even know who explore these ideas until we win. So that's kind of at least the PFP's approach to next steps.
Our theory and practice that we're talking about, how we help that. We got our ideas and we practice in the street to see what's going on. I know if I hit them like this, I get knocked to the ass up. And you go on the streets and damn, fuck, that didn't work. Theory and practice. That's what we do. That's gonna help us out. And one of the main things too is to not allow opportunism. Be principled. Always be principled. People are saying, well, Kamala Harris says, oh, I'm going to give you this much for this. I'll give you that and that. Now, all you got to do is sacrifice the people in Gaza and allow us to keep putting those bombs that are dismembering children in the streets. But we'll give you the black liberation stuff. Well, we know it's a lie anyway. But so we'll give you that. We'll give you this on trans. We'll be better than Trump, this on that. We'll give you that, but you gotta be for this thing. No, we're not gonna give up our God. That'd be opportunistic. And as long as we remain principled and don't lie to the people, don't lie to the masses, don't lie to the working class, because they're gonna catch you in a lie. They said Obama's gonna be the one who liberates black struggle and Africa and stuff, and look what he did. And people will look back and say, oh, why did you support him? They'll remember the ones who didn't support him. And so, that's one of the main things we keep doing. And also always tell the truth. When we're in election campaigns and things like that, when we're running, I was in a very hard situation, and even with some of the folks in the Peace and Freedom Party at a different position on the Ukrainian war in terms of, is this a proxy war that they're using to expand NATO? That what they're doing there? That wasn't popular at all. But I said, I still gotta say it. I still gotta say what's true. And guess what? I got the most amount of 105,000 votes when I took that shit on. And it's like, and I spent $5,000. The guy who spent $1 million, a Democrat, he came, after he came 10th. I came in 8th out of 28 people. It's like, so, on the Senate campaign. So sometimes it doesn't work because you gotta tell the truth. The people want to hear the truth. So, anyway, that, and charismatic leaders, man, people who can really advance our electorate, better than me. This one right here, that one over there. Over here, that one there, here, there, and here. Those are the ones, man. I can sleep at night better. The old folks are gonna do that. That's it.
Well, what can I add to that? How can we keep it growing? Well, I think, yeah, just doing what we do, just making the spaces more inviting. You know, I think that's a big thing, even though it seems small. And just keeping it a mass org and inviting dialogue. You know, the conversation we had about the Ukraine, I think these are things that we shouldn't shy away from in groups. You know, sometimes some parties, you know, they're like, oh, well, it depends on what the line of the leadership is and stuff like that. No, we have to become a mass movement, and we can't shy away from topics, and just tell the truth on every one of those topics, and you'll find the right, you know, place to be. I think one thing that I can kind of see in Mexico that they did, that we can take a lesson from, is they made their own media. A lot of the people that were animated by their party, they go out in the streets, they interview people, they go to marches and dialogue with random people, you know, and it's a very friendly culture, so you feel very inviting even if people are going to interview you, and I think people really, because they had power and they were able to have like a morning presidential session where people can go to work, listen to the president in the morning, and they get out of work and they'll watch their favorite YouTube guys talking about politics. So it became a new kind of lifestyle for them, where before they used to, you know, just go to work and listen to music and get off and watch novelas. Now you have people that are, you know, fully politicized all through the day after day, and now they know their senators, their representatives, and that's the type of movement that we need. So the more we can motivate people to, like, you know, start their own YouTube channels and to watch each other, you know, try to spread the word of these alternative medias. I tell people, I know the journalists I look at, you know, like, I know their history, I know what types of reporting they've done, you know, and I followed most of them for many years, so I know where I'm getting my news from, where most people really don't know, and we need to change that, especially here. And I think that would really help a lot.
It reminds me, Hubert Chow was himself.
Yeah.
The equivalent of like a daily variety show, right? Exactly. So speaking of awesome. Those are all great answers. I want to give it up to our panelists before we open it up to the Q&A. Comment in the audience. So this is a chance here. If you'd like to speak, just quickly raise your hand, and then I'll call on you, and then just if it's a comment or a question, just it's a discussion. So this is our time. Yes.
I can't remember your name, but you raised this initially because, well, you spoke first. So,
Yes.
when you said that about movement building and how to get people to trust you and to get people more involved, I think that, like, just reading some of Lenin's work and, like, excerpts from speeches, I think that something he said that was really important is when you provide for the people, they have no choice but to trust you. And I think it was like, when the first question was about like how do, like the rise of right-wing fascism and just like those types of movements, it's because they're providing things. Even if it's metaphysical things, people are so fooled by that, Like simple things like at work, how do you trust your boss? They give you free donuts or something. Like simple things people are really enticed by because, life is so bleak and unfortunately short. So when we were talking yesterday at the conference that we had, I talked about like how to get more community organizing where I currently live, where there's a huge immigrant population, but the infrastructure is just not meant to service that many people. It's in Silver Spring. I mean, it's not consequential now because most people don't know where that is, so it doesn't matter. But it's near DC, so I was talking about like starting simple because you all mentioned like practical solutions. So like after school programs for kids, tutoring, doing like food drives and stuff like that, because that practically affects people. It puts food in their hands and it gives their children something to do, and they learn something, an activity, or like a subject at school that they're struggling with. And I think that's like as simple as I can make it, because those are material things that you can physically see getting better over time. And I think, John, something that you pointed out was just like you talked about Nixon, and how there are certain things that he has done for people, and it had nothing to do with his personal politics. But it's the same with Kennedy too. Like, I think that this was, like lots of people, this is not speculation, but lots of people believe that he was assassinated due to him not wanting to originally go to support some of the, I don't know what you call it, but the Israeli Defense Forces. He didn't want to initially support that because he thought it was too escalatory. You know, it wasn't necessary for what they were already doing, because they were already occupying Palestine. So, and so it was actually democratic forces around the world, you know, international support that swayed him to this. Above all else, you know, the civil rights movement and stuff like that. So I just thought that everyone's right, you know, like practical wins really do make the movement gain support. I thought that was important to know, because everyone's like talked about it. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, Sergio, Springville. I guess it's kind of it is a question. It's kind of, I have so many things I want to talk about. Like I just love the discussions or whatever. But I think one of the things that I feel frustrated, like I felt everything that y'all were saying or whatever. I think even though but I say that, and even though I still find that we end up in these generalizations, I guess, like these general talking points, which all sound good, right? But I think one of the things so there's a couple things, is like, how do we break out of these things? How do we start like naming things more specifically? And maybe it's like we're doing that with comrades like on the side or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But like, for example, like for me, when we're talking about like how do we build it from the bottom or whatever, it's like, okay, cool, like you know, we're talking about like the señoras en Latu. So that feels good, that feels like whatever. There's a real problem, right? Which is the señoras en Latu are not homies with the hood. Like with like the hood ass, you know what I'm saying? And we need some kind of, how do we build that? You know what I'm saying? How do we build actual like, because and I think there's like, I mean, so there are all these questions about culture and power within like these neighborhoods and these communities, you know? It's like, there's a lot of like, you know, it's like a lot of times we'll have like American-born Latinos, and they beef with, you know what I'm saying, the undocumented students at their schools, you know what I'm saying? And then there are like, you know, black and brown issues or whatever. So how do we like start thinking about how do we create that? I think that's something that I think about a lot. How do we get like more pointed maybe in our assessments and in how we're thinking about things? Because I get a little nervous when we're always being like, we just got to keep doing what we're doing, and we've done this before, and it's like we got our ass kicked forever. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like we're not, I think we get scared to step on each other's toes, and I think we get scared to whatever. Part of this, and this is kind of something that you mentioned just at the end, and I don't know if this was a reference to it, is I don't know how y'all think about language. I'm curious how everyone thinks about language, because I think at the heart of this is relationships. How do we build relationships with working class people? And again, working class people, hood people, whatever, a lot of hood people don't even think about working class like that. You know what I'm saying? They're like, whatever, I'm broke, you know what I'm saying, whatever. So how do we start to have language? Because I think a huge part of like relationship building is speaking in a language that people like, it's speaking ideas too in a language that people are like, yeah, I'm with that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like we're lacking that a lot. So how do y'all think about language? And how do we deal with like the very complex issues of like, you know, what was considered woke language, and it's like, this is all what we're supposed to say, all the PC language that we actually all end up falling into, which is good, and we understand that as politically conscious people, but most of the folks are not giving a fuck about any of that. You know what I'm saying? They're like, what? I don't know, I said this wrong, I said that wrong, you know what I'm saying? How do we deal with that? I don't know. So these are just kind of like big kind of questions, ideas, and I'd love to hear what anybody has to say, what y'all have to say, whatever.
Put it up to our panelists first.
Yeah, I think you have a great point. I mean, to me, it's being honest, you know, but still being kind of like what Hitler did, you know, where he talked to the working class a certain way, he talked to the middle class a certain way, you know, but he was lying to them in different ways. What we're supposed to do is tell the truth in different ways. I think, you know, when you're talking to the hood, you know, person, then, you know, they're not gonna understand maybe concepts like, you know, certain types of socialism or whatever, and maybe they will, and maybe you'll have the opportunity to explain things, but just know who you're talking to. I think we do that too much where you know, some people may argue, and we may even eventually in the party have, you know, should we, you know, which I think it's legit, we should back the word socialism. But then again, I don't think it's necessary to use it with someone that you know they're not going to really like get the essence of what you're saying. So just talk their language and lead them towards the conclusion that you know that we're all going to arrive to, is that we're in this situation and we have to do something about it, right? So instead of you know, just being uppity and being like, oh, let me tell you how, you know, like, in my language, and then teach you my language, and then I'll teach you what we have to do, you know. So I think, you know, just being conscious of, you know, who we're talking to and what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what other people have to say, you know, but I guess I'll respond, which is like, I mean, yeah, like what you said right now, like, it just like resonates a lot with at least like stuff that I've been thinking about. Because I mean, for me, like, you know, like the fool that I look up to is Hugo Chavez. You know, that fool could speak to the fucking, you know, masses, to the hood as fool, you know, the down as fool that you're talking about. And so, like, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, honestly, it's just, I think, like, as the comrade said, like, we don't gotta be speaking in, like, kind of like this kind of, like, uppity white people kind of, like, you know, like, tone, and just, like, speak to people in the language and I guess the lingos that they go by. But I mean, again, it's not just about, like, you know, like kind of uplifting, like, you know, like backwards stuff, you know, backward ideas about reactionary stuff. But it's like speaking to people about their issues and kind of relating it back to them. Because I mean, again, like we're talking about, like, I mean, I told you when we come in, like, you know, I grew up like in Red Park, and like, you know, like the people there, like they have their own forms of community. They have their own solidarity among each other. They have their clicked up, or they, you know, or just like by affiliations of people, they protect each other. They look out for each other. And despite the fact that, you know, no one is giving them political ideas, sure, it's just like they got to survive. And so, I mean, I think it's just about resonating with that, which is like we're speaking to that too. You know, we're trying to speak to. We want to protect our own, and we want to kind of like make it more organized. You know, we want people to, like, you know, be fed, to not be poor, to not be fucked up. You know, and so, and part of that is just by thinking of like concrete ways of doing it. And I think at least I brought up Hugo Chavez because, you know, like. At least I was reading this a couple of days ago, but like, you know, like he was able to inspire a lot of fools who, like, you know, who didn't fuck with the state politics, who were like, I don't trust to say, like, I support Hugo Chavez, I'm a Chavista, you know, like we war with him. But like, you know, with Maduro and like, you know, like all these other political actors came into power, they're like, nah, like, you know, we're suspicious of that, like, no, we trusted Chavez, you know, and so. And then you have like the formation of like the comunas, you know, where you have like it's hood people, you know, these are people in the fucking slums, like organizing themselves into like, I mean, they were down to really form like full ass communes where they were able to like figure out creative ways and embrace the struggle of like how do like we feed ourselves, how do we like protect ourselves in our own community, how do we stop drug dealers, you know, coming in and like, you know, doing this kind of stuff where like. I mean, honestly, the commune that comes into mind is La Pierdita, you know, the little rock, you know, in Caracas, actually, where this is, at least to me, that kind of speaks to what I'm coming from, is like Hugo Chavez, like speaking to the people, being from the people too. I mean, that's also a big thing that we're looking for, and that's why it says, like, we have leaders that we can source from the masses, who are in social movement work, who are in the unions, and we just gotta give them a platform, and give them the confidence to speak to the people, because like we're saying, like there's already a lot of experiences, and that's just from being fucking poor that people go through, that they understand that they need to self-organize, that they need to rely on themselves, that they need to struggle to get shit done, you know. And so that's honestly what I think we need to like resonate with. And for me, my biggest inspiration is Hugo Chavez, and how You know, he spoke to these people and they didn't really fall in line with the party, but they were like, no, but we're going to take these ideas and build them in our neighborhoods, in our hoods. And that's what they did. They protect their own. They protect it from drug dealers, from corrupt cops, and they building their own way of surviving as a community. They have their own textile factory. They have a fucking fish and pig farm, and these are not people who are who have degrees or anything. These are people that bajo. It's a pueblo. So that's kind of, at least for me, what resonates is that's what we got to bring back here. So.
Question. In terms of it, just a quick comment on that, in terms of, because I do think it's a good question. I also think just kind of definitely agree with the comments we're saying, and another point to add to that is in terms of thinking about as a socialist party, is actually when we run, know what we're running on and run on real policies. By that I mean it's good to be socialist, it's good to put out maximum program stuff, that's great, but I think a lot of times
What's maximum program? Sorry.
That's right. It's maximum program would be we want land back, right? We want abolish the police, abolish prisons, abolish rent, right? Abolish capitalism. These are maximum programs, and I think that a lot of times, even with very recent campaigns, just this election cycle, the socialist level platforms are, and it's okay. I understand that at this point, maximum program stuff, especially at big offices like presidential, help us communicate our message. But if we're trying to build our power, and when it's in bottom up, at least politically, yeah, I mean also grassroots stuff, but also as a political party, we're also talking about political seats. So from the bottom up does mean recognizing we have city councils, we have state assemblies, we have state senate, and then federal offices as well. To win those offices, we need to provide real policy solutions. Well, like I said, so yeah, maybe making references to the maximum program, but what you're running on in that election is really showing that you understand the conditions of your city, how the policies affect your constituents. Because I think another thing maybe what communists or socialists haven't been able to do yet is demonstrate that we're ready to govern, right? Because I do think that's one of the things that a lot of the folks outside the activist circle, they're we love the energy, we love the message, they don't necessarily feel inspired that we're ready to govern, right? I think that in showing concrete plans, that's what concrete means to me. It's showing that that you are someone, that you're not just saying you have good ideas, but you have plan, a method to do this, and some of that might feel a little bureaucratic, technocratic at times, but that's where they'll catch you, right? And I think so. The working class a lot of times is, of course, we have folks from the barrio and from the bottom, but a lot of times we also have just and I don't even mean white. I mean talking about the communities I grew up, just your wider working class, right? Just a broad working class that aren't all facing the same sharpness in their struggles, right? They're not all just as acute in a particular area, but there is a wider experience that we're all going through as a working class. And so I think by having actionable, an actual understanding and showing that you're ready to govern, I think is how a socialist party can, part of that viability, show that you're viable. So that's kind of what your question made me think about. Stop hogging the time, and I saw hands up here, right here. All right.
Okay.
Yourself, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I think class consciousness is so important, and I don't think enough Americans are aware of that and how to find solidarity with other workers, because I think there's this mentality that a lot of Americans have had for a long time, which is very individualistic, and even if you're not rich today, you might think you can be rich in the very near future, so you're not fighting to lift other people up, you're fighting to lift yourself up. And that's how do you get people to be convinced to be in a movement to lift other people up without you feeling like you might not have enough. And I feel like right now there's been a movement within, I think with right-wing, I mean, it's been talked about in the news a lot, right-wing podcasters, and people have had entertainment, people who are speaking to working class people who aren't working class themselves, but those ideas are somehow resonating with so many working class people who might see themselves be able to, be a millionaire or even a billionaire someday, but that's not realistic. You're, closer to, yeah, being very poor than a billionaire, and that's, and that's okay. I feel like we need to build a movement that lifts so many people up. Like, I've been listening to, Twitch these days a lot, like Hassan Piker I listen to a lot, and that's like a very accessible way and entertaining way to like have people, especially like talking about like young men or whatever. I've been like interested like how like to make like politics more accessible, because like all these like right-wing spaces have been having those conversations, but I think like right now we need to be able to like have those conversations about like class consciousness specifically, because I think people might feel, I don't know, like insecure in like whatever way to like talk about how to lift people up. Like, I feel like that's looked down upon, like people are afraid to have like less for themselves. And I think like the scare tactic of like politicians being like, specifically Trump, like targeting on whatever marginalized groups, being like, these people are getting something, but you aren't getting anything. Like, that's like very easy, like for somebody to be like, oh, I feel like I deserve something. But I'm like, no, like we can all get something. Like, that's okay. Like, it's like, I feel like, and for a long time, Democrats have made people feel like complacent or like safe in some way. And like, it's been very easy to vote for them. I know like I was able to get my mom to, unregistered from the Democratic Party this year, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so like, wow, that was like amazing. She's a lifelong Democrat, a black woman who like was finally like, I'm done, like I can't. And like being able to like have those conversations and be like, a better future is so possible. Like, we don't have to settle, we don't have to be complacent, we can lift each other up and we can have more is like so important. So like being able to have those conversations, being able to like make people like feel safe with like identifying like as a working class person, and like making people feel okay to like use public transportation and talk about like like wanting more for everyone. I feel like is so important. So that's something I've been like working on this year.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
let's
you
go.
wanna go? Okay. To like piggyback off of what Nikki said, yeah, like as far as to how to talk to people that are from different social standings or different social classes, I always keep it honest with everybody. It doesn't matter. I don't change up my language per se. I will say that maybe you have to like nudge them instead of just pouring the ice cold water on their faces. Basically, you have to like nudge them along the way, because that's how it was with my best friend Jess. Like, she grew up in a very conservative, white, Catholic household, but also very, very poor. Like, and it's just the, and I did not grow up in a Catholic nor white household, working class, but not poor. So it was very hard to understand how you can grow up in a household where you don't have much, but your parents can push this ideology that one day, like you were saying, you'll be rich, or if you go to college and you'll do this, like you'll get a nice job, you'll get the whole corporate thing. So just over the years, I think just by having conversations about politics and being honest and just like growing, like looking at the news, keeping yourself informed. I mean, walk outside your house. If you live in Baltimore, you can't miss it. Anywhere where you live, you really can't miss it unless you really do live in like a gated community. And I think that really helps. As far as like what the conversation initially started off on, like if you're from a really poor area, I think that even more so just keeping it honest, because no one's stupid. Everybody is very intelligent. Like, everyone who lives and is human knows what is up. As far as like, you go outside, you have to get a job. You do this, like, you go to school, you don't have enough money for school. Like, everybody's experiencing that. You just have to put words to it. And I think by just speaking plainly, no bullshit, I really believe, exactly, nobody's dumb. I think everyone's gonna get to the same conclusion. It may take other people more time than others, depending upon their situation. But I think that if anybody's in the same situation, just being honest, I think will allow for more people to feel open. And as far as the whole online situation, like Nikki was talking about with like Twitch, yeah, I think it is really good to make politics more accessible. And that's like kind of how I got into it, like YouTube and just different podcasts, different YouTubers. And I think that's how like a lot of, I can't remember your name. Danny,
Yeah.
but what you were initially talking about, like how so many workers are politicized now because you can listen to politics all day long, which is what I literally do. You can listen to it in the morning, the evening, the night, it doesn't matter, anywhere you go, as long as you have a phone, earbuds, you're good. So I think that's what we have to do, like create our own hub centers. Like, I think if this was something we talked about at the center, like propaganda, like I know like some people think it has a bad connotation, but propaganda is just spreading your own message. It could be good or bad, it depends on how you view it. So like that's what right-wing people do all the time. They have like Ben Shapiro, he's talking nonsense 24/7, but people listen to him because they trust him and they think that he's right, even though he himself is a multimillionaire and steals from everyone.
Charlie Kirk too.
Charlie Kirk, exactly, exactly.
Turning Point USA is so
Turning
powerful.
Point. Something that I did, like on my college campus, was I actually signed up for Turning Point. I am in no way one of them, but I wanted to hear what they say. I need to understand how they think, you know? And a lot of them, surprisingly, weren't fascists. They're not. They just were people that were tired of the BS, not feeling heard, understood. You know, they definitely weren't Democrats, which is totally fine with me. But I'm not, like, they were middle class, but they felt like their own power was slipping. Like, they feel hopeless, like, as to what is after college. So, you know, just listening to everybody. I'm not saying you should take in everybody's opinions, because sometimes it really is BS, but just listening and talking to people. That's what I've learned and how to change people over time. Yeah, that was a lot, sorry.
Sure. Thanks for that. We got hands up with Collier and then over there next. So.
Yeah, thanks. Collier, Eaton. Really good questions being raised. And yeah, respecting that coming to consciousness is a process. I really like the emphasis being placed on class consciousness. And what is class consciousness? I think we can think of class consciousness as the recognition that there is bourgeois hegemony and there is proletarian hegemony. That's the fundamental of class consciousness. And I think that we can see ways to raise class consciousness that are effective and ways that are not so effective. And for Lenin, bringing the political fight to the bourgeoisie in practice is how consciousness is actually raised. I do like political education with bookstores, which is okay, you know, that kind of stuff is good, but there are limits to it. You know, the people in this room, nerds, that'll reach us, right? That's good enough for some people. But the masses of people will have a different path to coming to consciousness. And I really like that we have a Morena member here speaking to the struggle in Mexico, which is not a socialist struggle on paper, but it is in fact a socialist struggle because it's bringing working class people into politics in a way that we've not successfully done here. And we can see that that's raising their class consciousness, and that is putting socialism into practice. Whether or not they call it socialism. And they're not using the maximum program slogans, right? Poor people first. Very simple. Speaks to the practical needs of the masses of people. Their program is very basic and straightforward and truthful. And when you demonstrate in practice and through electoral campaigns, I think it's a phenomenal way to do it. There's a lot of unburned fuel in the United States, in the electoral arena, that we need to burn through, to bring the fight to our enemy, right? And making it clear that our enemy has not met the needs of people. What are the practical needs of the people? In Mexico, they got themselves a pension, right? They got themselves disability pay. They raised the minimum wage by 2 times. They have youth jobs programs. These are practical needs of the people that the liberals were not providing. So when you have a slogan that's clear and truthful, that speaks to the practical needs of people. You can demonstrate to them that either the liberals are already doing these things and they don't need to fight for them, or that the liberals are not doing these things, right? And that puts our enemy in a position that they've never been in before in the United States, which is having to defend their program. And that is what I think this alliance of forces that we're talking about today can do, is put our enemy in a position they've never been in before. And in so doing, I think we can raise the political consciousness of the people we want to reach. So we need all sorts of different strategies for the complexity of the working class in the United States. That's a discussion for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But that is our project.
I know there's a lot of skepticism to be had around electoralism. Fair, like super fair. Like we've all seen it fail over and over. But at the same time, to your point, is that by not participating in any way, we pretty much cede that whole political arena and say we're not going to struggle in that area. And I think part of what we know is that this movement needs to take the struggle to every area, including the political arena as well.
Right.
So,
Which working class people take seriously.
They do.
They don't talk about mutual aid. They don't talk about my book clubs, right? They don't
Right. And so I think that, one of the things I'm always advocating for a mass political party is, of course, you have your socialists have their maximum program and all that, but you have to, politically, you have to reach people where they're at, right? You want the political process itself to be a radicalization process, but if you're asking people their first point of contact, and some, mind you, some people are going to be ready to jump, dive in to do the grassroots work. A lot of folks place political legitimacy, with the state, and so a lot of times, like you're saying, they're not paying attention to what the small activist groups are doing. They're thinking that real solutions need to be taken to the state, and regardless of how we feel that might work or not, we know that is an avenue by not by not being in that space. We're seeing all that ground and maybe appear to be less legitimate to a lot of folks. I mean, anybody on the panel here have any thoughts on comments on that?
But also this, like folks have said, the working class is hit with so many things and they have to figure out how to survive. In the process of surviving, sometimes you might have to, maybe you have to sell some drugs, maybe you have to do something else, you have to be creative, you gotta be a mathematician, it's some of the things that you have to do. In fact, there's two black women, high school women, who came up with the Pythagorean theorem solution that nobody else, up until they did, were able to do that. Two high school black women from, I don't know if they're from Mississippi or somewhere where you don't get a lot of, it's not Beverly Hills, you don't get a lot of the attention and things like that, but they were able to, so that talent is there. Our working class is really smart. And sometimes they already know the contradictions and things, and like you said, we just got to put words to it and things. And so that's it. The attitude of us coming to our class has to be an attitude of humbleness and saying that, you already know, and I just want to help give access to be able to implement that and take leadership and the kind of thing. And that kind of attitude is really important in understanding things. I actually went and worked with folks from the Crips and the Bloods and football games in Jordan Downs a while ago. There was a grouping that was trying to bring them together, and they were pretty successful. And we had stuff, and I was refereeing some of those games. I didn't know shit about football. But they had to come, you couldn't bring any weapons or anything. You have these games, and I was making bad calls, and no, I didn't get shot. So it just shows that's right there. Yeah. They say the youth, they're violent, they're this and that. No, there's a certain code, a working class code that everybody kind of has, and we gotta respect that and come there, anyway, that kind of attitude. But if you come there with another language of the, even if you're saying the right words that you know, the struggles, the different struggles that black people have, you know, and different words that you might use. I mean, God, there was colored, there was Negro, there was black, there's African American, there's all different kinds of things that we called each other over the years and things, and other folks have different words, different terms. But sometimes if you're in a college or in academia and things, you have more privilege to know all these things. But you come to somebody who doesn't have that privilege and step on them for not saying the right thing? No, the attitude. Teach people the right way without humiliation and things. And it may not be very safe to humiliate somebody who could kick your ass. You gotta do the right thing.
Yeah.
But, and some of the things like, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, having a massive program and making those connections to the mutual aid stuff. Yeah, because the thing is that the ruling class will provide, if they can get something else, they'll provide some more help to the needs of people right now. They'll supply a little bit here if they can get something else and build, and it destroys the consciousness. It makes people think of, oh, I'm the one who's going to save, the politician's going to save you, not these other people. Listen to me, I'll give you a little of this and give it. So that's the thing, we have to give as well to the need, but we have to make sure that we understand the connection of want being the taking of our wealth by the ruling class. That we have to make those connections, because there are folks in Skid Row, there are folks in a shelter, and there was a shelter, I can't remember which one it was, but people were volunteering there to help with folks, with mutual aid, to helping things. And it turns out the person who led this damn thing, like a lot of nonprofits and things, and most 70% of the money sometimes goes to them. But anyway, they supported this anti-immigrant legislation and other things. So all that voluntary help is going to it's not helping to build the consciousness. So if you're not careful, so it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. You can do that, but also it's important to say the things. People might be afraid of the word socialist and communist or whatever, or whatever people want to be anarchists, whatever. They might be afraid of that, but when you provide something, they trust you. You can say, well, the hell, yeah, that's what I am. I'm not afraid of telling you who I am. And you got to make those connections. But one of the other things we can do really easily is there's a lot of need that people have, social needs in the communities right now. You know, when I grew up, in our generation and stuff, Facebook was, you call your friends, you say you get out the door, you say, hey, let's go play, come on, let's play. And people will be playing in the streets, and now it's Facebook, now it's social media, now there's the phone. And you don't see people playing in the streets in the communities anymore, no connection with the neighbors. So that's a big thing that we got to try to build. And one of the things we can do is just have a block club party. You have a big block club party, get people out. That way they get the chance to see, they get some musicians who are working class, or some plays or something that's working class, and they can see these political messages that way, and they can get some food, help, games, but that's something we can do. It's relatively inexpensive too. You get a flatbed truck, you bring the sound, you do this and that, and you do it through different communities. But anyway, that's one of the ways to build community. And let's have a peace and freedom party. You can do those things. Here are the people that that care about you. Not Kamala Harris.
Yeah, totally. For the sake of time, I saw two hands, so we're just going to do those two questions. We'll do next equality, and then over there at the end, and then we'll wrap it up. But so yes, please.
Okay, I want to say first that the visibility of Peace and Freedom Party, it is something we need to enhance. I mean, maybe right there, sample ballot and see the names, and maybe they notice there are other names on it. But we need, we need more Peace and Freedom Party t-shirts. And we should be giving them to people in the organizations we're trying to coalesce with. Like, here's what size do you want? And if you wear this, we'll wear yours. So, I mean, if there was a picture of a demonstration in the newspaper and two different people had the Freedom t-shirt, they'd say, wait a minute, I've never heard of this. Well, we have heard it on my ballot, you know? That's one thing. What I've learned about electoral politics, at least at start, I learned from working with Jesse Jackson and Rainbow Coalition. And what you were saying, John, and you, April, right? April was saying about giving the people what they need. This woman went to volunteer, white woman went to volunteer in Iowa in '84. And she came back and said, there's this little cafe that had a sign in the window saying that you're in Jackson country. This is in Iowa, right? And so she took off her Jesse Jackson buttons and went and said, what's with this sign? And I thought, when she was reporting on this, that she was going to say that he said, yeah, he works for Parity, believes in Parity, which is a small farmer concept of keeping them from going out of business. And no, she said, why do you have this Jackson, you're in Jackson country sign? He said, well, Jesse went with us to the bank and helped us renegotiate our loans.
Okay.
You know? And you were talking about a different message, the same ideas, but voicing it different. I saw Jesse 12 times in '84, twice on television, the other 10 live. And when he spoke in Watts, which is where I was working, he talked about his poverty that he grew up in. He spoke in the San Fernando Valley. He didn't tell that story. But he talked about, you know, but he never contradicted himself. You know, when you talk to these people, you talk to their issues and weave in the other issues. Like, he was talking to workers who were losing their jobs. This is in '73. He talked about Chile and the coup there, and how, you know, he made the connections. And the other thing was, he went to McFarland in California. We were hearing that in McFarland, kids had the highest rate of cancer because of the pesticides in the water. It's a farming community. So we went there and he talked with the people, and we went on the bus and we listened to them. And what the newspapers asked was, why did he go there? Those people who are not citizens, they can't vote for him. And he said, because it was the right thing to do. I mean, you know, what a concept. And you know, I just really, for one, I'd like to see more meetings like this. I love the idea that somebody brought up about the block parties with peace and freedom all over the place, so the people can start saying the words. But hopefully with more females in your panel.
Oops. Sorry, my bad.
And I believe we have one more.
Oh, okay. I was just getting into listening to Carol speak and also many of the other speakers, so I don't want to even deal with the question of the actual concrete outreach, so that was very interesting. I think really just breaks down to both humility and honesty, those two qualities of going out there and just doing it. Beyond block parties, I would say, you know, just set up a table anywhere in the neighborhood with your information and talk to people, because we're going to make mistakes and we're going to also learn from our mistakes. So, you know, I don't want to get into that. I thought that example of Jesse Jackson, you know, in terms of going to people who weren't even going to be able to vote for his campaign is an amazing one. I just wanted to say one thing, getting back to the first part of our discussion about the election, and sort of, at least my perspective on it, because a lot of it has been about, you know, how did Trump, you know, win with such a large margin? And so I would submit that it's not because the working class in this country, of all nationalities, has shifted to the right. I don't believe that. What I believe is that those who rule this country have shifted to the right. The Democratic Party, I'm talking about those who actually run it, who are part of the ruling class. Those are the people that have shifted to the right. In every way, shape, or form, it is really the Democratic Party that led to basically Trump winning. It's a failure of neoliberalism, and it's happened all across the globe, and it's sometimes gone in different directions. In Sri Lanka, you know, they voted in a sweeping number of candidates who are avowed socialists. What do we think about them? Whatever type of socialism, it went in a different direction. And of course, everyone's familiar with the French elections. I say that because we as revolutionaries in this room need to look at it as how are we going, as an opportunity, not because it's not incredibly dangerous, especially for those folks who are in the front lines of being attacked, whether it's migrant workers or whether it's transgender people or other folks. It's that you look at it, close to 12 million people who are in the working class are undocumented workers. They're workers, they're our class. You've got another 11 million, they shifted and didn't even vote, who voted for the Democratic Party last time. They didn't even vote. Maybe they didn't vote because they were sick and tired of the genocide. Maybe they didn't vote because they were just sick and tired of inflation. Those are the people that we have to rebuild and build, you know, a revolutionary socialist left movement. Whatever words you use, it doesn't matter. I mean, we have to be more organized, and I do agree with what one of the comrades said about, you know, of course the right wing is very organized, but the social base for fascism in this country is really the traditional middle class, small businesses, people who have that mindset. And actually it was money that won the election. If you remember, in a lot of ways we had predicted and analyzed it initially when Kamala Harris was first nominated, all the money was shifting towards her campaign. And it looked like, because, you know, the capitalist market likes stability, that she was going to win. But if you remember, sort of at the last minute, there was all this betting on the stock market, and there was some betting on Trump, and also Elon Musk got into the picture. Well, that really was a symptom that what the capitalists want is worsening conditions for workers so that they can make bigger profits. So it's sort of a process that none of us should beat ourselves up about. It's a process that exists. It's an opportunity to mobilize. And I would want to just say, I'm from Baltimore, April. The only thing that I can say is I'm impressed by the Peace and Freedom Party in this discussion from 2 points of view. One, I'm going to confess that I voted for the Green Party in Maryland because it was the only third party, progressive third party, on the ballot. And I could not obviously vote for Kamala Harris. And I went in there to vote again around a ballot initiative where I wouldn't even vote it, to be honest. But having said that, the problem with the Green Party, at least in Maryland, is they don't do anything except for electoral politics. Electoral politics is important for, I think, what John said, is a tactic that a lot of workers pay attention to it. Community people, poor people, they pay attention to it every 4 years, this crap. But, you know, they don't do anything in the community, the Green Party. The face of the Green Party is mostly white men, and I'm not, you know, speaking against white men at all, but you know what I'm trying to say. They're not, it's not the face of the actual working class. They were not, certainly in California. Or in Baltimore either. So basically, I'm just like clapping for you all because I'm glad that you're having these discussions. And I'd only say, you know, no, this is terrible to say, don't intellectualize it too much, don't worry. Just get out in that street corner and talk to people, set up that table, experiment, find out what works. And what we found out, at least in Baltimore, not to say that we have any answers, is that one, if there's an issue that poor people, oppressed people, working class people are mobilized by, then get involved in it and be the best fighters. Like right now, you know, we've been to rallies around the Department of Public Works, sanitation workers, fight for their issue. And then, you know, we've ended up with a lot of people that have come aboard because they've gotten to know us. And then and the other thing I'll say is don't worry, people are smarter than you think. You know, socialism, communism, some of that verbiage, it's not something we're going to use in a big talk, you know, when people are at their church meeting. But in personal thing, I agree with John. You know, I've seen John organizing in South Central for years and years. And he is noted as a socialist and a communist, but has also done the grassroots work. So, I'll give you all a big round of applause.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate y'all taking the time out of your Sunday to be here. We're gonna hang out for a minute, so if you guys want to talk to any of us about